Good morning and welcome to Science Around the World with Culp and Gold. Today it's just me, Miss Gold. Miss Culp is away, so we wish her well. I want to start this morning by telling you our I can and I will statement, very important. By the time you're done viewing this video, you should be able to say, I can describe and define the scientific method, and I can also identify the steps of the scientific method. So I will define the scientific method, I will identify the steps of the scientific method, and I will describe the steps of the scientific method. Now, if you find when you're done with this video that you are unable to answer those questions or to do those tasks, I invite you and encourage you to go back and watch the video again. So let's just start out by talking about, well, what is the scientific method? What are we talking about here? Well, the scientific method is a process that is used to find answers to questions about the world. There is more than one scientific method. There's various versions. Some versions have very few steps, and some have many, many, many steps. But they all have one goal, and that is to answer questions about the world around us in some kind of organized fashion. Now, when we talk about the scientific method, we always hear the term hypothesis. And a hypothesis is an educated guess based on the observations and the knowledge that we already have about a particular topic. And also you hear the word data. So I want to tell you, what is data? Data is the information that we gather during an experiment. So let me back up and slow this down for you very slowly and in steps. So what is the scientific method? The scientific method is a process. It's a process that is used to find answers. So it's a process to find answers to questions that we have about the world that we live in. There is more than one version of the scientific method. So is there only one version? No. There are several versions. Some versions have very few steps. Some have more steps than others. But they're all out there to identify a problem or questions, to come up with a question, and then find answers in an organized fashion. A hypothesis is an educated guess, and data refers to the information that we collect during an experiment. So what is the first step in the scientific method? So I have a question. I have a problem, and I want to investigate it using this organized fashion. So what's the first step? The first step is to identify the problem, okay? What is it that you want to know or explain? Use observations that have been made to write a question and address the problem that you would like to investigate. So start out by identifying a problem. Next, you need to form a hypothesis. Again, a hypothesis is an educated guess. What do you think is going to happen? Make a prediction. Predict the answer to the question and have a belief about what the outcome of the experiment is going to be. The third step in the scientific method is to create an experiment. How will you test your hypothesis? You need to develop a plan to carry out a reliable experiment and to address safety issues. So you need to create an experiment to test your hypothesis so that you can answer the question. Now, you do have to keep in mind safety rules and regulations always in the lab. So now that we have a procedure in place, the steps that we think that we're going to follow, next, we will actually go ahead and perform the experiment. You're going to follow the steps in the procedure and perform your experiment. As you're doing that, you're going to record your data and your observations. Again, the data is the information that you collect during the experiment. After you've collected your data or your information, you need to analyze that data. Is the data reliable? Does the data and the observations from the experiment support your hypothesis? So did you find out that your hypothesis, your educated guess, is true? If yes, you communicate your results. All right, so if you found out that your educated guess is correct and that your experiment was carried out the way it was intended, the way that you wanted it to go, then you would go ahead and communicate your results. Write a conclusion that summarizes the important parts of your experiment and the results. However, when you analyze the data, if you find out that the data does not support your hypothesis, you're going to go back, modify the experiment, rerun it, and then communicate your results. So let's summarize. What are the steps of the scientific method? Number 1, identify a problem. What's the question that you'd like to answer? Step number 2, form a hypothesis. You need to come up with an educated guess. What do you think is going to happen? Step number 3, create an experiment. Come up with a procedure, all of the steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, and don't forget to address safety issues. The 4th step, perform the experiment, carry it out, follow your own procedure. Number 5, analyze the data. Does the data support your hypothesis? If so, communicate your results. Otherwise, go back, rewrite, rethink, and redo your experiment. Now, having said that, I want to ask again. We started off with our I can and I will statement. I will be able to explain the scientific method and the steps of the scientific method. I will explain or define the scientific method. I will explain, define the steps. I'll be able to list them in order and be able to describe what's going on in the different steps. If you cannot do that, I encourage you and urge you to go back and watch this video again. Thank you. Have a great day.